I was sitting at my kitchen table helping my 7-year-old daughter Emma with her math homework when my phone buzzed. The notification showed a message from our family group chat. My stomach dropped as I read my mother's words, "Don't show up to the holiday trip, Brian. Nobody wants you there." Before I could even process that blow, my brother Marcus chimed in with a laughing emoji. "Yeah, nobody wants you or your kids there either." I stared at the screen feeling like someone had punched me in the chest. This was supposed to be our family's annual Thanksgiving getaway to the Outer Banks beach house, the tradition that had kept us connected for years. After my ex-wife Sarah left 6 months ago abandoning me and our 2 kids without warning, I thought this trip would help us heal together as a family. The group chat kept buzzing with more messages as I sat there in stunned silence. Emma looked up at me with her big brown eyes, sensing something was wrong, but I forced a smile and told her to keep working on her multiplication tables. My phone continued lighting up with notifications from the family chat, each message feeling like another knife twist. Finally, we can have a peaceful vacation without all the drama, my sister Jessica typed, adding a palm tree emoji for good measure. The irony wasn't lost on me that they were talking about drama while creating the biggest mess I'd ever experienced with my family. Maybe next year Brian will have figured out how to be a real father. Marcus added, followed by several family members reacting with laughing faces. My cousin Derek jumped in with, "Some people just can't handle responsibility." And my Aunt Linda added, "The kids probably have behavioral problems anyway with everything that's happened." What made this whole situation absolutely surreal was that I had quietly paid for every single aspect of this vacation. 3 weeks ago, I had covered the oceanfront rental house in Duck, North Carolina for $4,200. The 12-bedroom luxury property, with private beach access, had been my gift to the family, something I booked through Coastal Dreams Vacation Rentals after spending hours researching the perfect place for everyone to stay together. I'd also purchased airline tickets for all 12 family members, spending $8,600 on round-trip flights from Chicago to Norfolk. The flight arrangements alone had taken me 2 full evenings to coordinate, making sure everyone had seats together and departure times that worked with their schedules. I even upgraded several family members to premium economy because I wanted everyone to be comfortable. The rental cars were another $1,800, 2 full-size SUVs that I reserved through Enterprise to make sure we had enough transportation for everyone once we arrived. I had specifically chosen vehicles with good safety ratings because my kids would be riding in them. Restaurant reservations had cost me $2,400 in deposits and prepayments. I had booked tables at 5 different highly rated restaurants throughout our week-long stay, including a special Thanksgiving dinner at a waterfront establishment that required a significant advance payment. I wanted to make sure we had memorable meals together as a family, especially since this would be Emma and Tyler's first major holiday after their mother left. My marketing consulting business had been thriving this year, and I genuinely wanted to create magical memories for my children during what had been the most difficult period of their young lives. When Sarah walked out on us in May, she left behind 2 confused kids and a mountain of emotional wreckage. I thought surrounding them with extended family love and support would help them process their feelings about their mother's abandonment. But as I read message after message in the group chat, I realized my family had never seen me as anything more than a convenient source of funding for their entertainment. They were perfectly happy to let me cover all expenses while simultaneously making jokes about what a terrible father and person I was. Some people think money solves everything. Jessica typed, apparently oblivious to the fact that her vacation was entirely funded by the person she was mocking. "At least we won't have to deal with Brian's kids acting out at dinner," my mother added. "You know how they've been since Sarah left." That comment hit me like a physical blow. My children had been remarkably resilient considering their mother had abandoned them without explanation. Emma had thrown herself into school activities and art projects, while 5-year-old Tyler had become more clingy, but was working through his emotions with the help of a child therapist. They weren't acting out at all. They were two small humans doing their best to understand why their mother had chosen to disappear from their lives. I looked over at Emma, who was now coloring in the margins of her math worksheet, completely unaware that her extended family was discussing her like she was some kind of burden. Tyler was in the living room, building an elaborate castle out of blocks, occasionally calling out to show me his progress. These weren't problem children. They were bright, loving kids who deserved better than family members who saw them as inconveniences. The messages kept coming, each one more hurtful than the last. My family had apparently been planning this exclusion for a while, but they had been perfectly content to let me continue funding their vacation. The realization that they saw me as nothing more than a walking wallet was devastating, but it also lit a fire of determination inside me. I scrolled back through our conversation history and noticed something interesting. Every single vacation expense had been discussed in terms of family contributions and everyone pitching in. But when it came time for actual payments, somehow I was always the one who ended up covering everything. This pattern had been going on for years, and I had been too focused on keeping family harmony to recognize what was really happening. Marcus sent another message. Maybe Brian can spend Thanksgiving learning how to be a better person. The laughing emoji that followed felt like salt in an already gaping wound. I took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. If my family didn't want me or my children at this vacation, then they certainly didn't need my financial support for it either. I opened my laptop and began pulling up confirmation emails and account information for every single reservation I'd made. The group chat had gone temporarily quiet, probably because everyone was congratulating themselves on finally putting me in my place. They had no idea what was about to happen next. I spent the next hour systematically documenting every payment I had made for the family vacation. My laptop screen filled with confirmation emails, credit card statements, and booking references. The total came to $17,000 money I had spent willingly, because I believed we were building family memories together. Emma finished her homework and climbed onto my lap, wrapping her small arms around my neck. "Daddy, you look sad," she said in her gentle voice that always managed to melt my heart. "Did something happen?" I hugged her tight and kissed the top of her head. "Just some grown-up stuff, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." I wasn't going to burden my 7-year-old with the knowledge that her grandparents and extended family had just rejected her so cruelly. "Are we still going to see Grandma and Uncle Marcus for Thanksgiving?" she asked hopefully. Emma had been looking forward to playing on the beach and building sandcastles with her cousins. "We're going to have an even better Thanksgiving adventure, just the three of us," I told her, already formulating a plan that would turn this devastating situation into something positive for my children. Tyler wandered into the kitchen carrying his favorite stuffed elephant, Mr. Peanuts, and announced that he was hungry. I made them both grilled cheese sandwiches while my mind raced through the logistics of what I was about to do. The beauty of having made all the reservations myself was that I had complete control over canceling them. After getting the kids settled with dinner and a movie, I began making phone calls. My first call was to Coastal Dreams Vacation Rentals, where I spoke with the property manager, Patricia Williams. She had been helpful during the original booking process, and I hoped she would be understanding about the cancellation. "Mr. Johnson, how can I help you this evening?" Patricia's warm voice came through the phone. "I need to cancel our reservation for the Duck property from November 22nd through November 29th. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. Is everything all right? That's such a beautiful property, and I remember how excited you were when you booked it for your family reunion." I took a deep breath and decided to be honest. "There's been a family situation. It turns out the people I was planning to vacation with don't actually want me or my children there, but they were still expecting me to pay for everything." Patricia was quiet for a moment, and I could hear her typing on her computer. "Mr. Johnson, I have to say that's one of the most unfortunate situations I've heard in 15 years of working in vacation rentals. Let me see what I can do for you. She explained that normally there would be significant cancellation fees since we were only 3 weeks from the arrival date, but given the circumstances and my honest explanation, she was willing to process a full refund. The company policy had some flexibility for genuine emergencies, and she classified my situation as a family emergency. I really appreciate your understanding, I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. You know what, Mr. Johnson, I have 2 children myself, and if anyone ever treated them the way your family has treated yours, I'd want someone to help me out too. The full refund will be processed back to your credit card within 2 business days. My next call was to Delta Airlines, where I reached customer service representative David Thompson. This conversation would prove to be more challenging since airline cancellation policies are notoriously strict, but I explained my situation calmly and thoroughly. Sir, I understand this is a difficult family situation, David said after I finished explaining what had happened. Let me look at your account and see what options we have. He noted that I had platinum status with Delta due to my business travel, which gave me some additional flexibility. More importantly, he seemed genuinely sympathetic to my circumstances. Mr. Johnson, I'm showing that you purchased 12 tickets for this reservation all under your name and credit card. Given your loyalty status and the unusual circumstances you've described, I'm going to escalate this to my supervisor for a full refund consideration. I was placed on hold for nearly 20 minutes while David worked behind the scenes. During that time, I checked the family group chat and saw that the conversation had moved on to discussing what restaurants they wanted to try during their vacation. They were still operating under the assumption that I would continue funding their trip even after they had told me I wasn't welcome. David came back on the line with good news. Mr. Johnson, we're going to process full refunds for all 12 tickets. This is an exceptional situation, and Delta wants to maintain our relationship with valued customers like yourself. The refunds will appear on your credit card within 5 to 7 business days. I thanked David profusely and moved on to canceling the rental cars with Enterprise. That process was much more straightforward, and the customer service representative was understanding about the sudden change in plans. By 10 o'clock that evening, I had successfully canceled every reservation associated with the family vacation. My phone had been quiet for hours. The family group chat seemed to have moved their celebration to a different platform, or perhaps everyone had simply gone to bed satisfied with their successful exclusion of me and my children. But I wasn't done yet. While I had been making cancellation calls, an idea had been forming in my mind. The refunded money from the family vacation would be more than enough to create an incredible holiday experience for Emma Tyler and myself. Instead of feeling sorry for ourselves, we were going to have the best Thanksgiving of our lives. I opened a new browser tab and began researching Disney World vacation packages. The Grand Floridian Resort had availability for our dates, and their Thanksgiving dinner experience looked absolutely magical. I could book a suite with a view of Magic Kingdom arranged character dining experiences and give my children memories that would last forever. As I was comparing different resort options, my phone buzzed with a text message from Marcus. It wasn't in the group chat, it was sent directly to me. Hope you're not sulking too much, little brother. Maybe next year you'll be mature enough to handle family time. I stared at that message for a long moment, feeling anger and hurt wash over me in equal measure. But instead of responding with anger, I simply replied, I hope you have a wonderful vacation. What Marcus didn't know was that his wonderful vacation was about to become significantly more complicated. I spent another hour finalizing our Disney World reservations, using the money that had originally been intended for a family beach house that no longer welcomed us. Emma and Tyler were going to wake up tomorrow morning to the most exciting surprise of their young lives, and my family was going to wake up to a very different reality than they were expecting. The last thing I did before going to bed was screenshot every cruel message from the family group chat. I had a feeling I was going to need that documentation very soon. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The sun was streaming through my bedroom windows, and I could hear Emma and Tyler giggling in the kitchen, probably attempting to make breakfast for themselves. For a moment, I forgot about the previous evening's drama and just enjoyed the sound of my children being happy. Then I looked at my phone and reality came crashing back. The first call had come in at 6:47 in the morning from Marcus. The voicemail was frantic. "Brian, what the hell did you do? I just tried to check in early for our flight, and Delta is saying our reservations don't exist. Call me back right now." The text messages were a progression of panic and anger. My mother had written, "Brian, there's been some kind of mistake with the vacation bookings. The rental company says you canceled everything. Please call and fix this immediately." Jessica had sent a series of increasingly agitated messages. "This isn't funny, Brian. There are 12 people counting on this vacation. Whatever game you're playing, it needs to stop right now." By 8:30 in the morning, my phone was ringing again. This time, it was my mother, and her voice was shaking with rage when I answered. "Brian Michael Johnson, you fix this situation right now. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this vindictive behavior is completely unacceptable. There are children involved in this vacation, and you're ruining their holiday." I took a sip of my coffee and responded in the calmest voice I could manage. "Good morning, Mom. I'm not sure what you mean. Yesterday evening, you and the rest of the family made it very clear that me and my children weren't welcome on this vacation. I was simply respecting your wishes by removing myself from the planning." "That's not what we meant, and you know it. We were just frustrated, but we didn't expect you to act like a child and cancel everything out of spite." "I didn't cancel anything out of spite," I said, watching Emma carefully pour cereal into 2 bowls. "You told me not to show up, and Marcus specifically said nobody wanted me or my kids there. I believed you meant what you said, so I made arrangements that didn't include me. Since I'm not attending the vacation, it seemed logical to remove my financial contributions as well." There was a long pause, and I could hear my mother breathing heavily. "Brian, you're being ridiculous. Of course we want you there. We were just having a family discussion about some concerns." "What concerns?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "Well, we've all noticed that you've been struggling since Sarah left, and we thought maybe some time apart would be good for everyone. The children have been having a hard time, and we didn't want their emotional issues to affect everyone else's vacation." I felt my jaw clench. "My children are doing remarkably well considering their mother abandoned them without explanation 6 months ago. They're in therapy, they're excelling in school, and they're 2 of the kindest, most resilient kids I've ever known. If you think they're having emotional issues, perhaps you should consider that those issues might stem from family members who view them as burdens rather than beloved grandchildren." "That's not fair, Brian. We love Emma and Tyler. We just thought this particular vacation might be too much for them to handle." "Too much for them to handle? It's a beach house vacation, not military training. They're 7 and 5 years old. Playing in the sand and swimming in the ocean is exactly what children that age should be doing." My mother's tone shifted from defensive to manipulative. "Look, we can work this out. Just call the rental company and the airline and get everything back. We'll all be more supportive, I promise." I walked over to where Emma and Tyler were eating their cereal and ruffled Tyler's hair. He looked up at me with a milk mustache and grinned. These were the faces that mattered to me, not the voices on the phone demanding that I fund their entertainment, while simultaneously rejecting my children. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't do that. The cancellations have already been processed, and honestly, I think this is for the best. Emma, Tyler, and I are going to have our own Thanksgiving adventure. You're being selfish and vindictive. This affects more than just you." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an incoming call from Marcus. I told my mother I had to go and switch to the other line. "Brian, I just got off the phone with the beach house rental company, and they told me some sob story about a family emergency." "What lies did you tell them?" "I told them the truth. I said the people I was vacationing with decided they didn't want me or my children there, but they still expected me to pay for everything." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and I could hear him breathing heavily. "Look, we might have gotten a little heated yesterday, but you know we didn't really mean it. We're family. Family members don't tell each other that nobody wants them around. Family members don't make jokes about children whose mother just abandoned them. If you didn't mean it, you shouldn't have said it. Fine, whatever. Just fix this mess you created. There are other people involved here who didn't do anything wrong. You're right, there are people who didn't do anything wrong. My 7-year-old daughter and 5-year-old son didn't do anything wrong, but that didn't stop everyone from deciding they weren't welcome on a family vacation. I hung up on Marcus and turned my phone to silent mode. Emma looked up at me with concern in her eyes. Daddy, was that Grandma and Uncle Marcus? They sounded upset. I sat down at the table with my children and took Tyler's small hand in mine. Remember how I told you we were going to have our own special Thanksgiving adventure? Well, I have some very exciting news to share with both of you. Their faces lit up with curiosity, and I couldn't help but smile at their enthusiasm. Whatever pain my family had caused me, these two beautiful children made everything worthwhile. How would you like to spend Thanksgiving week at Disney World? The explosion of excitement that followed was worth every penny I had spent on cancellation calls the night before. Emma literally jumped out of her chair and started dancing around the kitchen while Tyler clapped his hands and shouted, "Mickey Mouse!" at the top of his lungs. As I was explaining our Disney vacation plans, my phone buzzed with a notification that made my stomach drop. I had received an email from a law firm in Arizona with the subject line regarding custody arrangements for Emma and Tyler Johnson. I opened the email with trembling hands while my children continued chattering excitedly about Disney World. The message was from Sarah's attorney informing me that she was filing for emergency custody of the children based on concerns about my fitness as a parent. The email mentioned documented evidence of emotional instability and concerning behavior patterns. My blood ran cold as I realized what had been happening. While I thought my family was just being cruel and exclusionary, they had actually been building a case against me with Sarah's legal team. The family vacation wasn't just about rejection. It was supposed to be a trap where they gathered evidence to support Sarah's custody case. My phone rang again, and this time it was a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, I heard Sarah's voice for the first time in months. "Brian, I hope you're proud of yourself. Now the whole family sees what kind of person you really are. Canceling a family vacation out of spite? What kind of father does that? The kind of father who protects his children from people who view them as unwanted burdens," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "The judge is going to be very interested in hearing about your recent behavior. Isolating the children from their extended family, making impulsive financial decisions, acting vindictively toward people who care about them." I looked at Emma and Tyler, who were now drawing pictures of Mickey Mouse on napkins, and felt a surge of protective fury unlike anything I had ever experienced. "Sarah, you walked out on these children 6 months ago without a word of explanation. You haven't called them, sent a card, or asked about their welfare even once. If you think any judge is going to believe that I'm the unfit parent in this situation, you're living in a fantasy world." But even as I said those words, I realized that Sarah and my family had been planning this together for weeks, maybe months. The evidence they had gathered wouldn't be based on truth. It would be based on a carefully constructed narrative designed to make me look unstable and vindictive. As I hung up the phone, I realized that the battle for my children's future was just beginning. But I also knew that I had one significant advantage. Everything I had done had been motivated by love and protection, while everything they had done had been motivated by manipulation and control. The war for my family was about to begin, and I intended to win. 3 hours later, while I was researching family law attorneys and trying to make sense of the legal documents, Sarah had sent my phone rang with a call from Delta Airlines. I almost didn't answer, assuming it was another family member trying to guilt me into reversing the cancellations, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Johnson, this is David Thompson from Delta Airlines customer service. We spoke yesterday evening about your flight cancellations. I hope I'm not bothering you, but something unusual has come up regarding your situation." I set down my coffee and gave David my full attention. "What kind of unusual situation?" "Well, sir, after we processed your cancellations yesterday, several of the other passengers on those flights attempted to use your confirmation number to make changes to their reservations. When our system flagged this activity, it triggered an automatic fraud investigation." My heart started beating faster. "What kind of fraud investigation?" "It appears that someone was trying to use your frequent flyer benefits and travel credits without authorization. We take this very seriously, especially when it involves our platinum members. During the investigation, we discovered some other concerning information that I think you should know about." David explained that when the fraud investigation team ran security checks on all the names associated with the original booking, Sarah's name had been flagged in their system. She'd been banned from flying Delta for causing disturbances on 3 separate flights over the past 2 years. The incidents include verbal abuse toward flight attendants, intoxication during flight, and aggressive behavior toward other passengers, David continued. The most recent incident was just 8 months ago when she was removed from a flight in Phoenix for threatening a crew member. I sat down heavily in my kitchen chair processing this information. Sarah had been banned from Delta for nearly 2 years, but somehow my mother had been helping her use my frequent flyer account to book travel. This explained why Sarah always seemed to have airline tickets despite claiming to have no money. There's more, Mr. Johnson. When we ran a deeper check on the booking patterns, we discovered that someone has been using your account to book one-way tickets to Phoenix multiple times over the past 6 months. These bookings were made using your member number but paid for with different credit cards. My blood turned ice cold. One-way tickets. Yes, sir. Specifically, there are records showing that someone attempted to book one-way tickets for 2 minors traveling to Phoenix for this exact same travel period as your family vacation. The booking was made 3 days ago under the name Sarah Martinez, but using your frequent flyer benefits. The pieces of the puzzle suddenly clicked into place with horrifying clarity. Sarah hadn't just been planning to take the children during the family vacation. She had been planning to disappear with them completely. The one-way tickets to her boyfriend's home in Arizona were proof of kidnapping intent. Mr. Johnson, are you there? I know this is a lot of information to process. Yes, I'm here. David, can you send me documentation of all this? I think I'm going to need it for legal purposes. Absolutely. Our fraud investigation team is preparing a complete report. We're also flagging all accounts associated with this activity to prevent any future unauthorized use. I have to say, sir, your decision to cancel those reservations yesterday may have prevented something much more serious from occurring. David went on to explain that Delta's security team had contacted law enforcement about the suspected travel fraud and attempted child endangerment. The airline had protocols for situations involving potential parental kidnapping, and Sarah's attempt to book unauthorized travel for my children had triggered those protocols. As compensation for the complexity of this situation, and in recognition of your loyalty as a platinum member, Delta would like to offer you and your children complimentary first-class upgrades on any domestic flights within our network for the next year. I thanked David profusely and hung up the phone with my mind reeling. What had started as a cruel family rejection had turned into the discovery of an actual kidnapping plot. Sarah and my family had been working together to create a situation where she could legally abduct my children using the family vacation as cover for their disappearance. My phone immediately rang again, this time with a call from Detective Rachel Martinez with the Chicago Police Department. Delta's security team had been efficient in their reporting. Mr. Johnson, I'm calling about some suspicious airline bookings that may involve your children. Do you have a few minutes to speak with me about your ex-wife's recent activities? I spent the next hour providing Detective Martinez with a complete timeline of Sarah's abandonment, the family's sudden hostility toward my children, and the legal documents I had received that morning. She was particularly interested in the coordination between Sarah's custody filing and the planned family vacation. Mr. Johnson, based on what you're telling me and what the airline has reported, it appears that your ex-wife was planning to take your children out of state permanently without your consent. The one-way ticket bookings and the timing with the family vacation suggest premeditation. Detective Martinez explained that they would be opening an investigation into attempted parental kidnapping and travel fraud. She also recommended that I contact Child Protective Services to report the situation since my family members appeared to have been complicit in the planning. I want you to know that your decision to cancel those travel reservations yesterday likely prevented your children from being taken. If they had disappeared during that family vacation, it would have been much more difficult to locate them and prove that it wasn't a legitimate custody arrangement. After hanging up with Detective Martinez, I sat in my kitchen staring at my phone and trying to process everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. Emma and Tyler were in the living room playing with blocks, completely unaware that their mother had been planning to kidnap them and that their extended family had been willing participants in the plot. My phone buzzed with a text message from my mother. "Brian, we need to talk immediately. There are lawyers involved now and this has gone too far." I replied simply, "Yes, there are lawyers involved, and police detectives, and airline security. This went too far the moment you decided to help Sarah plan to kidnap my children." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was finally ahead of the people who had been plotting against me. The truth was coming to light, and it was more shocking than I had ever imagined. But I also knew that the real battle was just beginning. Sarah wouldn't give up easily, and my family would likely close ranks to protect themselves from the legal consequences of their actions. I looked at my children playing peacefully in the living room and made a silent promise to them that I would protect them from anyone who tried to hurt them, no matter who those people claimed to be. By Thursday morning, my story had taken on a life of its own in ways I never could have anticipated. It started when David Thompson from Delta Airlines shared my situation, anonymously of course, in a travel industry newsletter called Customer Loyalty Insights. The newsletter was meant for airline employees and travel industry professionals, but one of the subscribers was a lifestyle blogger named Amanda Chen, who ran a popular website called Modern Family Dynamics. Amanda reached out to me through LinkedIn after piecing together enough details to identify me as the subject of the airline story. She explained that she specialized in writing about contemporary family relationships and asked if I would be willing to share my experience publicly. "Your story represents something that's happening to a lot of people right now," Amanda explained during our phone conversation. Adult children are setting boundaries with toxic family members, but they're facing backlash and manipulation tactics that are really sophisticated. I think your experience could help other people recognize these patterns in their own families. I was hesitant at first, but Amanda assured me that she would protect my children's privacy and focus on the broader themes of financial manipulation and family boundaries. After discussing it with Emma and Tyler, who were surprisingly mature about understanding that Daddy was trying to help other families who were having problems, I agreed to let Amanda write about our situation. Amanda's article titled "The Holiday Hero Dad, Who Stood Up to Family Bullies" was published on her blog Thursday afternoon. She had a following of about 50,000 readers, so I expected maybe a few hundred people would see it. Instead, the article went viral within hours. By Thursday evening, the story had been shared nearly 10,000 times on social media. By Friday morning, major news outlets were calling my phone asking for interviews. Good Morning America wanted me to appear on their Monday show. The Today Show requested a phone interview. Local Chicago news stations were asking to film segments about modern family dynamics and financial boundaries. My marketing consulting business suddenly exploded with new opportunities. 3 of my existing clients called to tell me they had seen the story and were impressed with my integrity and strategic thinking under pressure. But more surprisingly, I received calls from 5 new potential clients who said they wanted to work with someone who demonstrated such clear values and principled decision-making. "Brian, we've been following your company's work for a while, but seeing how you handled this family situation, convinced us that you're exactly the kind of person we want representing our brand. Explained Jennifer Walsh, the marketing director for a major outdoor gear company. Anyone who prioritizes their children's well-being over family politics while maintaining such grace under pressure is someone we want on our team. The business opportunities were gratifying, but the real validation came from the thousands of comments and messages I received from other parents who had experienced similar family dynamics. Person after person shared stories about being financially exploited by relatives who simultaneously criticized their parenting or excluded their children from family events. Reading your story made me realize that I'm not crazy for feeling hurt when my family expects me to pay for everything, but treats my kids like they're inconveniences, wrote one mother from Texas. You gave me the courage to set boundaries with my own toxic relatives. However, the viral attention also brought unexpected consequences for my family members. Social media users had apparently done some detective work and identified several of my relatives through their public Facebook profiles. Marcus had posted screenshots of his cruel text messages on his own social media, apparently thinking they were funny, which allowed people to connect him to the viral story. By Friday afternoon, Marcus was dealing with significant professional consequences. The consulting firm where he had been interviewing for a senior position called to withdraw their job offer after seeing the screenshots of his messages about my children. His current employer received multiple calls from people who had seen the story, questioning whether they wanted someone with his character representing their company. This isn't fair, Marcus called to tell me Friday evening. My personal family business shouldn't affect my career. People are being vindictive. You made your personal family business public when you posted screenshots of yourself mocking 2 children whose mother had abandoned them. I replied. You thought it was funny when you were doing it, but now you're upset about the consequences. Jessica was facing similar scrutiny. Her passive-aggressive comments about my children had been included in Amanda's article, and several parents in her neighborhood had recognized her from the story. The PTA at her daughter's school was reportedly discussing whether someone who could be so cruel to children should be involved in school leadership activities. My mother was struggling with the public attention as well, but for different reasons. She had apparently been getting calls from old friends and neighbors who were shocked to learn how she had treated her own grandchildren. Several people from her church congregation had reached out to express disappointment in her behavior. But the most significant consequence was what happened when the story reached Child Protective Services. On Friday afternoon, I received a call from CPS investigator Robert Kim, who explained that they had opened a case based on the public information about Sarah's attempted kidnapping and my family's participation in the plot. Mr. Johnson, we've reviewed the police report and the airline security documentation, and we have some concerns about the safety planning that was occurring around your children. We'd like to schedule a home visit to assess the current living situation and discuss protective measures. I was nervous about the CPS visit, but investigator Kim turned out to be thorough and fair. He spent 2 hours at our house Friday evening interviewing me about the timeline of events and observing my interactions with Emma and Tyler. He was particularly interested in how I had handled the emotional impact of the situation on the children. Mr. Johnson, I have to say that your children appear to be thriving despite the chaos in your extended family. They're clearly bonded with you. They seem emotionally secure and they're developmentally appropriate in every way I can observe. He explained that CPS would be investigating my family members for their role in the kidnapping plot, particularly focusing on whether they had endangered the children through their actions. The agency would also be providing additional documentation to support my custody case against Sarah. What your ex-wife and family members did was not just cruel, it was potentially criminal. Planning to facilitate the unauthorized removal of children from their custodial parent is something we take very seriously. As the weekend approached, I found myself in the surreal position of having become accidentally famous for standing up to family bullies. Interview requests continued pouring in from podcasts, online publications, and local news programs. My story had apparently struck a nerve with people who had experienced similar family dynamics, but had never seen anyone successfully push back against financial manipulation and emotional abuse. But the most meaningful response came from Dr. Sarah Patterson, a family therapist in Chicago who had read Amanda's article. She called me Saturday morning to offer free therapy sessions for Emma Tyler and myself, explaining that she was moved by our story and wanted to help us process the trauma we had experienced. Your children have been through something that could have lasting effects, Dr. Patterson explained. The fact that family members, who should have been sources of love and support, instead participated in a plan to separate them from their father is a significant betrayal. I'd like to help them understand what happened in age-appropriate ways and develop coping strategies for the future. As I tucked Emma and Tyler into bed Saturday night, I realized that what had started as the most painful rejection of my life had somehow transformed into an opportunity for healing and growth. The viral attention had brought new business opportunities, therapeutic support, and validation from thousands of strangers who understood what we had been through. But I also knew that the hardest part was still ahead. Sarah's custody case was ongoing, and my family was likely to become more desperate and vindictive as the legal consequences of their actions became clear. The battle for my children's future was far from over, but for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like we were finally fighting from a position of strength. Our Disney World vacation the following week turned out to be exactly the healing experience my children needed. Emma and Tyler threw themselves into the magic of the parks with an enthusiasm that reminded me why I had fought so hard to protect them from my family's toxicity. Watching Tyler's face light up when he met Mickey Mouse or seeing Emma's wonder during the fireworks show at Magic Kingdom confirmed that I had made the right choices, even when those choices felt impossible. But even in the middle of our magical vacation, the consequences of my family's actions continued to unfold back home. On Tuesday evening, while we were having dinner at the Grand Floridian, I received a call from Detective Martinez with an update on her investigation. Mr. Johnson, I wanted to let you know that we've uncovered some additional information about your ex-wife's activities that you should be aware of. Sarah's boyfriend in Arizona, the one she was planning to relocate with your children, has a criminal record for domestic violence. My stomach dropped as Detective Martinez explained that Sarah's boyfriend, James Rodriguez, had been convicted of assault charges involving his previous girlfriend and their child. He was currently on probation and was prohibited from having unsupervised contact with minors. This means that if Sarah had succeeded in taking your children to Arizona, she would have been placing them in direct danger. The custody case against you was apparently intended to give her legal cover for relocating the children to a home where they would have been exposed to a known domestic violence perpetrator. The detective went on to explain that my family members were now facing potential charges for their participation in what law enforcement was treating as a conspiracy to commit parental kidnapping. My mother and Marcus had both received subpoenas to testify about their communications with Sarah and their knowledge of her travel plans. We've also discovered that your mother made several wire transfers to Sarah over the past 3 months, totaling nearly $8,000. When we questioned her about these payments, she claimed they were loans, but the timing suggests they were payments for her cooperation in the custody scheme. I sat in our Disney resort room after hanging up with Detective Martinez, watching Emma and Tyler sleep peacefully in their beds, and felt overwhelmed by how close I had come to losing them. If I hadn't canceled the family vacation when I did, my children might have been taken to Arizona and placed in the care of a violent criminal. The next morning brought another unexpected development. Patricia Williams from Coastal Dreams Vacation Rentals called to tell me that her company wanted to offer my family a complimentary week at an even better property than the one I had originally booked. Mr. Johnson, your story has been all over social media, and our entire team has been following what happened to you and your children. We're a family-owned business, and we believe that families who stand up for their children deserve support from other families. She explained that they had a luxury beachfront property in the Outer Banks that had become available due to a cancellation, and they wanted to gift us a week's stay whenever we were ready to take a real family vacation. We've been in the vacation rental business for 20 years, and we've seen a lot of family drama, but what your relatives did to you was beyond anything we've ever encountered. We want to help you and your children create some positive beach memories to replace the negative associations with this whole situation. Similar gestures of support continued throughout our Disney vacation. The resort manager, Kevin Walsh, had apparently heard our story from other guests and upgraded us to a larger suite at no charge. Character dining reservations that had been fully booked suddenly became available for us. Cast members went out of their way to make Emma and Tyler feel special, creating magical moments that had nothing to do with the controversy back home and everything to do with the simple joy of childhood. But perhaps the most meaningful support came from other families we met during our vacation. Parents approached me throughout the week to share their own stories of setting boundaries with toxic relatives, particularly around finances and children. A father from Oregon told me about cutting off his parents after they consistently undermined his parenting decisions. A mother from Florida described having to exclude her siblings from family events because of their drinking and inappropriate behavior around her kids. Seeing your story gave me permission to prioritize my children's well-being over keeping peace with adults who can't act right, one mother told me while our kids played together at the resort pool. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do as a parent is protect your children from people who claim to love them but treat them poorly. On Thursday evening, while we were watching the electrical parade, I received a call that I almost didn't answer because I was determined not to let family drama intrude on our vacation time. But something made me pick up, and I heard my mother's voice shaking with emotion. "Brian, I'm in the hospital. I had a heart attack this morning, and I need to talk to you before anything else happens." I stepped away from the parade route and found a quiet corner where I could hear her clearly. My mother's voice was weak and frightened, completely different from the angry, manipulative tone she had used throughout this ordeal. "Brian, I almost died today, and all I could think about was how wrong I've been about everything. The doctors are saying it was brought on by stress, and I know the stress was from the guilt I've been carrying about what we did to you and the children." She began crying, and for the first time in years, it sounded like genuine emotion rather than manipulation. "Sarah threatened me, Brian," she said, "that if I didn't help her get the children, she would make sure I never saw them again. She convinced me that you were unstable and that the kids would be better off with her, but I knew in my heart that wasn't true." My mother went on to confess that Sarah had been emotionally manipulating the entire family for months, playing on their fears about my mental state after the divorce, and convincing them that my children were suffering under my care. Sarah had painted a picture of me as a bitter, vindictive father who was using the kids as weapons against their mother. But watching what happened this week, seeing how cruel we were to you and Emma and Tyler, I realized that Sarah was the one who was vindictive and manipulative. She turned our whole family against you by telling us lies about how you were treating her and the children. The confession continued for nearly 20 minutes, with my mother revealing details about Sarah's manipulation tactics that were both shocking and heartbreaking. Sarah had apparently convinced my family that I was planning to move away with the children and cut off all contact with extended family. She had told them that Emma and Tyler were having behavioral problems in school and that I was refusing to get them help. She had even claimed that I was dating someone inappropriate and bringing that person around the children. None of these things were true. But Sarah had been persuasive enough to convince my family that intervention was necessary. The plan to exclude me from the family vacation had been presented as a way to give Sarah supervised time with the children, while the family assessed whether I was truly fit to be their primary custodial parent. I know we hurt you and the babies terribly, and I know saying sorry isn't enough. But I need you to know that everything we did was based on lies that Sarah told us. We thought we were protecting Emma and Tyler, but we were actually putting them in danger. I looked back toward the parade route where Emma and Tyler were watching the floats with joy and wonder, completely unaware of the conversation that was happening. These beautiful, happy children were the evidence that my mother's fears about my parenting had been completely unfounded. Mom, I appreciate you telling me the truth, but the damage you've caused goes beyond just hurting my feelings. You helped someone plan to kidnap my children and take them to live with a violent criminal. Emma and Tyler could have been seriously harmed because of what you did. I know, and I have to live with that for the rest of my life. The police detective told me about Sarah's boyfriend and his criminal record. I had no idea, Brian. If I had known she was planning to take them to someone dangerous, I never would have participated. We talked for another few minutes with my mother, expressing genuine remorse and asking what she could do to begin making amends. I told her that the first step was cooperating fully with the police investigation and the custody proceedings, which she promised to do. I want to be part of Emma and Tyler's lives again, but I understand that I have to earn that privilege back. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, including therapy and making legal statements against Sarah if that's what's needed. When I rejoined my children at the parade, Emma immediately noticed that I looked upset. She took my hand and squeezed it tight. "Daddy, are you okay? You look sad again." I squeezed her hand back and smiled down at her concerned face. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups have to have difficult conversations, but that doesn't change how happy I am to be here with you and Tyler." "Are we still going to do the character breakfast tomorrow?" Tyler asked, apparently worried that adult problems might interfere with Disney plans. "Absolutely, nothing is going to interfere with our magical vacation." As we walked back to our resort that evening, I realized that this conversation with my mother marked the beginning of a long healing process. The damage that had been done to our family relationships would take years to repair, but for the first time it felt like repair might actually be possible. The war wasn't over yet, but the tide had finally turned in favor of truth and justice. 6 months later, I was sitting in my home office on a sunny Saturday morning, watching Emma and Tyler play in our backyard through the window, while I prepared for a video call with a new client. The past half year had brought changes to our lives that I could never have imagined during those dark November days when my family rejected us so cruelly. The legal battle with Sarah had concluded decisively in my favor. Armed with documentation of her attempted kidnapping plot, her history of airline misconduct, and evidence of her plan to place the children with a violent criminal, the family court judge had terminated her parental rights entirely. Emma and Tyler would never have to worry about being taken away from their stable home again. Sarah's custody attorney had attempted to argue that my cancellation of the family vacation demonstrated vindictive behavior and poor judgment, but the evidence of the kidnapping conspiracy completely undermined their case. The judge had been particularly disturbed by Sarah's willingness to endanger the children by planning to relocate them to the home of her boyfriend with a domestic violence conviction. Mr. Johnson, Judge Catherine Morrison, had said during the final hearing, "Your decision to remove yourself and your children from a family situation that had become hostile and potentially dangerous demonstrates exactly the kind of protective parenting that courts want to see. The fact that this decision inadvertently prevented a planned kidnapping only reinforces that your instincts as a father are sound. My business had thrived beyond my wildest expectations. The viral story about standing up to family bullies had brought in dozens of new clients who specifically wanted to work with someone who demonstrated integrity under pressure. My annual revenue had more than doubled, allowing me to provide an even more secure future for Emma and Tyler. More importantly, the increased income meant I could afford the kind of therapeutic support that had helped all three of us process the trauma of what we had experienced. Dr. Sarah Patterson had become an invaluable part of our healing journey, helping Emma and Tyler understand that their grandmother and uncle had made mistakes, but that those mistakes didn't reflect anything wrong with them as children. Emma, now 8 years old, had developed remarkable insight about family relationships. During one of our therapy sessions, she had told Dr. Patterson, I think sometimes grown-ups forget that being family doesn't mean you get to be mean to people. Daddy taught us that love is about being kind, not about getting your way. Tyler, now 6, had initially struggled more with understanding why family members had been cruel to him, but with therapy and consistent support, he had learned to articulate his feelings in healthy ways. His favorite phrase had become, "That's not my problem," which he would declare whenever someone tried to make him feel responsible for adult conflicts. The relationship with my extended family had slowly begun to heal, but with clear boundaries that hadn't existed before. My mother had spent 3 months in therapy, working on her tendency to enable manipulative people and learning to recognize emotional manipulation tactics. She had also made formal statements to police supporting my custody case against Sarah. Marcus had faced more significant consequences for his behavior. The viral nature of his cruel messages had permanently damaged his professional reputation, and he had been forced to leave Chicago and start over in a smaller city where his name wasn't associated with the story. However, the experience had apparently been transformative for him. He had enrolled in anger management counseling and had written several heartfelt apology letters, taking full responsibility for his actions. "I know I can't undo the pain I caused Emma and Tyler," Marcus had written in his most recent letter, "but I want them to know that their uncle recognizes how wrong he was and is working to become a better person. You were right to protect them from my toxic behavior." Jessica had also undergone significant personal growth, though her journey had been complicated by the social consequences she faced in her own community. Several parents at her daughter's school had distanced themselves from her after learning about her role in the family drama, forcing her to confront how her passive-aggressive communication style affected not just our family, but her other relationships as well. The family Christmas gathering that year had been completely different from any holiday we had experienced before. Instead of the traditional chaos where everyone expected me to fund entertainment while criticizing my parenting, we had established new traditions based on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Each family member contributed financially to shared expenses. Everyone participated in planning activities that were appropriate for children. Most importantly, any conversation that became critical or negative toward Emma and Tyler resulted in immediate departure from the gathering. It's amazing how much more enjoyable family time is when everyone actually wants to be there and treats each other with kindness. My mother had observed during our Christmas dinner. The heart attack had been a wake-up call for her about what really mattered in life, and she had become one of Emma and Tyler's most devoted advocates. The children had flourished in ways that went far beyond just recovering from their mother's abandonment. Emma had discovered a love for writing and had been selected for her school's advanced creative writing program. Tyler had developed an interest in building and engineering, spending hours creating elaborate structures with various building toys. Both children had learned valuable lessons about setting boundaries with people who didn't treat them well, skills that would serve them throughout their lives. They understood that loving someone didn't mean accepting poor treatment from them, and they had internalized the concept that healthy relationships require mutual respect and kindness. Patricia Williams from Coastal Dreams Vacation Rentals had become an unexpected friend, and we had finally taken her up on the offer of a complimentary beach house vacation. The week we spent in the Outer Banks had been magical, filled with sandcastle building, beach walks, and family bonding that created the positive memories I had originally hoped our Thanksgiving trip would provide. David Thompson from Delta Airlines had also stayed in touch, occasionally checking in to see how we were doing and offering additional travel benefits when we planned family trips. The airline had used our story internally as a case study for customer service training, demonstrating how going above and beyond for customers could create lasting loyalty and positive publicity. But perhaps the most meaningful outcome had been the messages I continued to receive from other parents who had been inspired to set boundaries with toxic family members after reading our story. Parents shared stories of standing up to relatives who undermined their parenting decisions, demanding equal financial contributions for family events, and protecting their children from adults who treated them poorly. "Your story saved my family," one father from Texas had written. "My parents were constantly criticizing my wife and making my kids feel unwelcome at family gatherings. After reading about what you went through, I finally found the courage to tell them that their behavior was unacceptable. It took some difficult conversations, but now our family relationships are healthier than they've ever been." As I watched Emma and Tyler playing in our backyard, building an elaborate obstacle course for their bikes, I reflected on the profound life lesson that had emerged from our darkest family crisis. True family relationships are built on love, respect, and mutual support, not financial obligation or guilt. When people show you who they really are through their actions, believing them and protecting yourself accordingly isn't vindictive. It's wisdom. The most important lesson I had learned was that protecting my children's emotional well-being had to take priority over maintaining relationships with adults who couldn't treat them with basic kindness and respect. Family members who view children as burdens or inconveniences don't deserve access to those children regardless of biological relationships or traditional expectations. I had also learned that setting firm boundaries with toxic people often reveals their true character more clearly than years of trying to accommodate their bad behavior. My family's reaction to losing their financial benefactor had shown me exactly how much they valued our relationships versus how much they valued my wallet. But most importantly, I had discovered that children are remarkably resilient when they have at least one adult who consistently advocates for their well-being and demonstrates through actions that they are loved and valued. Emma and Tyler had not only survived their mother's abandonment and their extended family's rejection, but they had thrived and grown stronger through the experience. Our family story had become a testament to the power of choosing love and protection over people-pleasing and financial manipulation. We had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no to people who demand access to your children while simultaneously treating them poorly. The phone rang, interrupting my reflections, and I saw that it was Amanda Chen, the blogger who had first written about our story. She called occasionally to update me on other families who had shared similar experiences after reading our article. "Brian, I have some wonderful news. Do you remember the family therapy organization that reached out after reading your story? They've received a grant to create a support program specifically for parents who are dealing with toxic family dynamics around their children. They want to use your story as a case study for their training materials." The idea that our painful experience could help train therapists to better support other families going through similar situations felt like the perfect conclusion to our journey. What had started as cruel rejection had transformed into an opportunity to help countless other parents and children navigate toxic family relationships with greater wisdom and confidence. As I finished my conversation with Amanda, Emma came running into the house with grass stains on her knees and a huge smile on her face. "Daddy Tyler and I built the most amazing bike course ever. Do you want to come see it?" I saved my work and followed my daughter outside where Tyler was waiting proudly beside an elaborate arrangement of cones, ramps, and obstacles that demonstrated genuine creativity and engineering thinking. "This is incredible," I told them both, and I meant it. These children who had been labeled as problems and burdens by their extended family had created something beautiful and complex through their own imagination and teamwork. "Can we make dinner together tonight?" Emma asked. "Tyler wants to help make the salad." "Of course we can. That sounds like the perfect way to spend Saturday evening." As we headed inside to start preparing dinner together, I realized that our little family of 3 had found something that all the money I had spent on elaborate vacations had never been able to buy: genuine peace, security, and joy in each other's company. The journey from that devastating November evening, when my family rejected us, to this sunny afternoon of contentment had taught us all that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. Love is about showing up consistently, protecting the people who matter most, and creating safe spaces where children can grow and thrive. I hope our story helps you examine the relationships in your own life and ask yourself an important question. Are the people around you building you up or tearing you down? If someone claimed to love your children but consistently treated them as burdens, would you have the courage to protect your kids, even if it meant losing those relationships? Family isn't just about blood connections. It's about choosing to love and support each other through good times and bad. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set boundaries with people who can't respect those you care about most. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story and whether it resonates with any experiences in your own family dynamics. Please take a moment to share your perspective in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart or made you think differently about family boundaries, I'd be grateful if you'd like this video to help it reach other parents who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe to hear more stories about real families overcoming challenges and finding strength in unexpected places. And please share this video with anyone you know who might benefit from being reminded that protecting your children's well-being is always the right choice, even when it's the difficult one. Thank you for listening to our story, and I wish you and your families the courage to build relationships based on genuine love and mutual respect, because that's what true family really means.